Mom, you signed the papers I left on the table, right? It's important you do it soon. Those words came out of my daughter Emily's mouth as she said goodbye that night, giving me a quick kiss on the cheek before heading out the door. Words that, in that moment, didn't seem strange at all, because I trusted her completely, because she was my daughter, my only daughter, and I never thought she could hurt me. My name is Grace Miller, but everyone knows me as Gracie. I'm 68 years old, and I've lived my whole life here in Puebla, in the Analco neighborhood, in this colonial house my Richard bought when we got married more than 40 years ago. For 30 years I ran a bakery that was the pride of the whole barrio. A business where ladies lined up on Sunday mornings to buy my conchas fresh out of the oven, my crisp orejas, and that pan de muerto that sold out before noon every October. I closed the bakery when Richard passed away 7 years ago, because without him by my side kneading dough with me from 4 in the morning, the flavor just wasn't the same. Now I live alone in this big house, kept company by my memories and by the visits of my daughter Emily and my grandson Michael, a 6-year-old boy who is the only joy I have left these days. And now, before I go on telling you what happened to me that night, I want you watching on the other side of this screen to tell me in the comments what city you're watching this video from. I want to know how far our stories reach, how far the voice of a grandmother who needs to tell what she lived can travel. Where are you listening from? Write it below, please. It would make me very happy to know I'm not alone in this. That Friday night, Emily arrived at my house around 8. She brought a brown folder full of papers, and that smile that lately seemed a bit tired to me, though I blamed it on work because being a middle school teacher isn't easy. "Mom, I need you to do me a favor," she said, setting the Grace folder on the dining table. "Some documents from the notary papers about the lots Dad left. We have to update them in the registry because they're still under both your names. And you know, Dad's not here anymore. It's just bureaucracy, nothing complicated." I nodded without thinking much. The downtown Puebla properties Richard had bought with years of work were my livelihood. The rents from the tenants were what allowed me to live with dignity. If we had to update papers, then we had to do it. "I'll pick them up tomorrow, Mom. Sign them calmly. There's no rush," Emily said as she adjusted her sweater and fished for her car keys in her bag. She kissed me again, told me to take care, and left for home. I stayed to watch the 9 p.m. telenovela with a cup of chamomile tea in my hands, never imagining my life was about to change forever. Not 20 minutes had passed when I heard a sound coming from the living room. A cell phone was ringing. At first I thought it was mine, but no. My phone was right there with me, on silent, on the coffee table. The sound came from farther away. I stood up, set my cup down, and walked to the living room. There, on the couch where Emily had sat a little while before, was her cell phone. She had forgotten it. The device kept ringing, buzzing against the fabric. I was going to leave it there, figuring she'd realize soon and come back for it, but something made me stop. The phone's bluish glow lit up the room, and from where I stood, I could see something on the screen that froze my blood. I approached slowly, as if afraid of what I was about to see. And when my eyes focused on the letters on the screen, my legs began to shake. Emily's phone was receiving a WhatsApp message, but not just any message. The contact name at the top simply said, "Dad." And the number I had dialed thousands of times over 40 years, the number I knew by heart like I know the prayers I whisper every night, was Richard's number, the number of my dead husband. I stood there, my heart pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. How was it possible? Richard had died of a sudden heart attack 7 years ago. I had been with him in the hospital when he closed his eyes for the last time. I myself had canceled his phone line months after the funeral because every time I saw his name in my contacts, I broke down in tears. His phone was stored in a box in my closet along with his watch, his wallet, and that blue shirt he liked to wear on Sundays. So who was using his number now? Who was messaging my daughter from a dead man's phone? The ringing stopped, but the notification still glowed on the screen. "Dad, new message." My hands trembled so much I could barely hold the device. I shouldn't have done it. I know I shouldn't have invaded my daughter's privacy, but something stronger than common sense, something deep in my chest made me swipe the screen. There was no lock on it. It opened immediately, showing me the WhatsApp conversation, and there, black letters on a white background, I read the message that had just arrived. "Daughter, did you already convince your mom to sign?" I read those words once, twice, 3 times. My brain refused to process them, to understand what they meant. Convince her to sign what the papers Emily had left on the table? I scrolled up a bit, my clumsy fingers sliding over the screen. There were more messages, many more, all from that same number, all signed as if they were from Richard. "Emily, don't give up. Your mom is stubborn, but she'll listen. It's time you fix your situation. I would have helped when I was alive. Those lots are your future, daughter. Don't let them go." I felt the floor shift under my feet. I had to sit down on the couch before I collapsed. My daughter, my Emily, was receiving messages from someone pretending to be her dead father. And from what those messages said, it all had to do with the properties, with the papers she had left for me to sign. But who was sending those messages, and why? I heard a car stop outside, hurried footsteps on the porch, the door opening. "Mom, I'm such an idiot. I forgot my phone," Emily shouted from the entryway. I froze on the couch with my daughter's phone in my hands and my heart about to burst. I slipped the phone under a cushion in one swift motion I can't even explain. My hands shook, my breathing was ragged, but I tried to compose myself before Emily came into the living room. "Mom, where did I leave my phone?" she asked from the hallway. And I heard something in her voice I had never noticed before. Anxiety, fear. "I haven't seen it, honey," I replied, and the words came out drier than I intended. I stood, smoothing my apron to hide the tremor. "Are you sure you brought it?" Emily came in and searched with her eyes everywhere. She checked the coffee table, moved the chair cushions, even bent down to look under the TV console. I watched her from where I stood, studying every expression, every movement, trying to find in my daughter the person who was sending messages, pretending to be her dead father, because it had to be her, right? Who else could be behind this? "Geez, Mom, I can't find it," she said at last, running her hands through her hair in frustration. "Maybe I left it in the car. I'll check." She rushed outside. I waited a few seconds, walked to the window, and watched her rummaging through her car parked in front of the house, opening the glove compartment, checking under the seats. From where I stood, the streetlight lit her face, and what I saw broke my heart. My daughter looked desperate. I went back to the couch, pulled the phone from under the cushion, and looked at it again. The screen still showed that terrible conversation, those messages about convincing me, about the lots, about signing papers. I quickly locked the screen and set the phone on the coffee table, as if I had just found it there. Emily came back in empty-handed, flushed. "It's not in the car. Oh God, where did I leave it?" "Here it is," I said, pointing at her phone on the table, my voice as natural as I could fake. Her face lit up immediately. "There it is. How did I not see it?" She grabbed the phone, checked it, swiped to look at something, and for a second I saw her eyes move left to right, reading. Then she slipped it into her bag and smiled, but that smile didn't warm my soul like it used to. "Thanks, Mom. I'm heading out. I'll come for the papers tomorrow." Yes, honey. I'll be here," I said, walking her to the door. When her car disappeared around the corner, I locked the door, turned off the porch light, and stood in the dark entryway, trying to understand what in the world had just happened. I couldn't sleep that night. I sat on my bed with the nightstand lamp on, staring at the brown folder Emily had left on the dining table. It was almost 2. In the morning, when I finally got up, went downstairs, and opened the folder. Inside were notary documents, just like Emily had said, but they weren't papers to update the registry, like she had explained. They were transfer of ownership documents papers to convey the 3 downtown Puebla lots from my name to Emily's. And on the last page, there was a blank line waiting for my signature. My stomach churned. I sat at the dining table and reread every page, every paragraph, every line. There was no mistake. If I signed those papers, I would lose everything. The properties Richard had bought, thinking of my future, of my old age, of ensuring I'd never be left destitute, would become Emily's. And I would be left with only this house and a pension barely enough to eat. Why? That was the question pounding in my head over and over. Why would my daughter do this to me? Why did she need my properties? And who was sending those messages from Richard's number? The next morning, Saturday, I woke up earlier than usual. I had barely slept, but I couldn't lie in bed turning it all over in my mind. I showered, got dressed, and dialed my comadre Helen, the friend of my whole life, the only person in this world I could trust completely. "Helen, I need you to come to my house," I said when she answered. "It's urgent." "What happened, comadre? Are you okay?" she asked, her voice instantly concerned. "I'm fine, but I need to talk to you about something I can't say over the phone. Can you come?" "I'm on my way right now. Give me half an hour." Helen arrived exactly 30 minutes later with her big purse on her shoulder and that worried look only a true friend can have. I sat her in the kitchen, poured coffee, and told her everything. The messages on Emily's phone, Richard's number, the transfer papers, everything. Helen listened without interrupting, her eyes growing wider, one hand pressed to her chest. When I finished, she stayed quiet for a long moment, processing everything. "Gracie," she said at last, taking my hand across the table, "this is very serious. Do you think Emily is behind those messages?" "I don't know, Helen. I don't want to believe it. But who else could it be? And what if someone is deceiving her too? What if someone else is involved? That possibility hadn't occurred to me. How? Who? I don't know, but using a dead man's number to manipulate someone isn't simple. That takes knowledge technology. Emily doesn't know those things." I shook my head. My daughter taught Spanish and literature. She knew nothing about computers beyond texting and Facebook. "You need professional help, comadre," Helen said firmly. "You need a lawyer, and maybe even a detective." A detective? The idea sounded like something out of a movie. "Yes, Gracie. Someone to find out what's really happening, because something very dark is going on and you can't face it alone." She was right. I was a 6-8-year-old woman who'd spent her life baking bread and caring for her family. I had no idea how to investigate fraud or mysterious messages, but I wasn't going to sit and wait for them to steal everything Richard had left me. "Okay," I told Helen, feeling something inside me harden, grow stronger. "I'm going to find out what's happening, and if my own daughter is betraying me, she'll have to face me." Helen squeezed my hand. "That's the spirit, comadre, and I'll be with you every step." Just then, my phone buzzed. A message from Emily. "Mom, I'm coming by for the papers. You signed them, right?" I looked at Helen. She looked back at me, and I knew exactly what I had to do. "Not yet, honey. I need to read them calmly," I texted, my fingers shaking as I typed every word. Helen sat across from me, watching me with eyes that knew every one of my fears. Emily's reply came almost immediately. "Mom, they're just notary papers, paperwork. There's nothing to read. Just sign where the little marks are. Just sign." As if it were that easy, as if I were a foolish old woman who signs whatever's put in front of her without asking. "Honey, give me a few days. I want my lawyer to review them first," I wrote, and before sending it, I looked to Helen for approval. She nodded. This time, the reply took longer. 5 minutes, 10, 15. I stared at my screen every 30 seconds, stomach in knots. Finally, the message arrived. "Your lawyer? Mom, since when do you have a lawyer?" "They're simple papers. Why complicate everything?" There it was, the irritation, the pressure. My daughter had never spoken to me like that. "Well, your dad always told me important papers should be reviewed," I replied, using Richard's name on purpose to see how she'd react. The typing dots appeared and disappeared several times. Emily was writing, deleting, writing again. Finally, "Fine, Mom, do what you want, but don't take too long. Yes, it's important." I set the phone down and took a deep breath. "Well played, comadre," Helen said with a small smile. "You bought time. Do you know a real lawyer?" "Licenciado Harris," I answered immediately. "He helped Richard and me when we bought the lots. He's trustworthy. Call him right now." "This can't wait." I found his number in my old address book, the paper one I've had for years with the numbers written by hand. I dialed, and after 4 rings, a man answered. Hello, Licenciado Harris? This is Grace Miller, Richard Miller, wife. May he rest in peace. Miss Gracie, what a pleasure to hear your voice. How are you? It's been years. I need to see you urgently, Licenciado. It's about the properties my husband left. I have some papers I need you to review. His tone changed immediately, more serious, more professional. Is something wrong, Miss Gracie? That's what I need you to tell me. Can you see me today? Of course. Come to my office at 4 in the afternoon. Do you remember the address? I do, Licenciado. I'll be there. When I hung up, Helen was already standing, grabbing her bag. I'm going with you, comadre. You're not going anywhere alone until this is cleared up. At 4 sharp, Helen and I sat in Licenciado Harris's office, a man around 55 with glasses and that serious air that comes from years of experience. I'd placed the papers Emily left on his desk, and he had been reviewing them for nearly 20 minutes in complete silence. I watched him, trying to read his face, but it was impenetrable. Finally, he set the documents down and looked me straight in the eyes. Miss Gracie, do you know what these papers are? My daughter told me they were documents to update the property registry. He slowly shook his head. These are not update papers. This is a total transfer of ownership. If you sign here, he tapped the last page, you would be transferring the 3 downtown properties free of liens into your daughter Emily's name. You would no longer own anything. I already knew, but hearing it from a lawyer hit like a punch to the stomach. Helen took my hand. And is that legal? I asked, my voice breaking. She can only do it if you sign voluntarily. But Miss Gracie, I have to ask, do you want to give those properties to your daughter? No, I answered without a second's doubt. Those properties are my livelihood. The rent is what lets me live. Without them, I'd have nothing. He nodded. Then don't sign and keep these documents in a safe place, because this could be evidence of an attempted fraud. Licenciado, Helen interjected, leaning forward. There's something else you need to know. We told him everything. The messages on Emily's phone, Richard's number, the words about convincing Mom the lots being the future. He listened closely, taking notes in a notebook. This is very serious, he said when we finished. Someone is committing identity spoofing. Using a deceased person's number to emotionally manipulate someone could constitute fraud. We need evidence. You saw those messages clearly? I did, Licenciado, but they were on my daughter's phone. I couldn't take photos. We need to obtain those conversations somehow, and we need to find out who's behind that number. Do you have your late husband's old cell phone? Yes, it's in a box. Bring it to me, and I also need your permission to hire a private investigator. I have a contact, a very good detective who specializes in family fraud. His name is Walker. He can help us trace that number and discover what's really going on. The word detective made me feel like I was trapped in a nightmare. How had my life come to this? A week ago, everything was normal. My daughter visited, we had coffee, we chatted, and now I was sitting in a lawyer's office talking about fraud and detectives. How much will all this cost? I asked, because while the properties kept me afloat, I wasn't swimming in money. Miss Gracie, don't worry about that right now. The important thing is to protect your estate. We'll discuss fees later. First, we need to act quickly before whoever's behind this tries something else. I nodded, suddenly feeling very tired, very old. Helen squeezed my hand again. One more thing, Miss Gracie, the lawyer said seriously. Don't tell your daughter about any of this. Not yet. If she's involved or if someone's using her, we can't alert them that you know. Can you do that? I can, I said. And I felt something break inside my chest because it meant I would have to look my daughter in the eyes and lie, pretend everything was fine, act as if I didn't know she was betraying me. We left the office at dusk. Helen drove me home and stayed until I made dinner. Before leaving, she hugged me tightly. You're going to be okay, comadre. You're stronger than you think. That night, alone in my house, I sat in the armchair where Richard used to watch the news. I closed my eyes and spoke to him like I sometimes did when loneliness grew too heavy. Richard, my love, I don't know what's happening. I don't know if our daughter is betraying me, or if someone is deceiving her too, but I swear I'll get to the bottom of this. For you, for me, for everything we built together. My phone vibrated. A message from Emily. Good night, Mom. Sleep well. I looked at the words on the screen and felt a deep ache in my chest. Good night, honey, I replied. And I wondered how many more lies we would have to tell each other before the truth finally came to light. Monday morning at exactly 10 a.m., my doorbell rang. I was in the kitchen making coffee, nervous because I knew who it was. The day before, Licenciado Harris had called to tell me Detective Walker would come to start the investigation. I opened the door to a man around 48, average build, denim jacket, a folder under his arm. He had the face of someone who'd seen a lot but kind eyes. Miss Grace Miller? He asked calmly. Yes, that's me. You must be Detective Walker. At your service, ma'am. May I come in? I sat him in the living room. I served coffee and sweet bread I'd bought at the corner bakery. Though I no longer had my business, I never lost the habit of offering bread with coffee. The detective took a notebook and pen from his folder. Miss Gracie, the lawyer filled me in, but I need you to tell me everything from the beginning with all the details you remember, no matter how small. And I did. I told him about Emily's visit Friday night, the papers she left, her forgotten phone, the messages from Richard's number, everything. He took notes without interrupting, nodding now and then. You still have your husband's old phone? He asked when I finished. I stood, went to my bedroom, and took from the closet the box where I kept Richard's things, his watch that no longer kept time, his wallet with our wedding photos still inside, and his cell phone, one of those old keypad models from 7 years ago. I brought it to the detective. Walker examined it carefully. He tried to turn it on, but it was completely dead, no battery after years in storage. Did you cancel the line after he passed? Yes, about 3 months later. There was no point in paying. And do you have the cancellation receipt? It should be in my papers. Let me look. I went to my little study where I keep bills and documents in old folders organized by year. I found the folder from the year Richard died, and there, among hospital receipts and funeral papers, was the phone company's confirmation of the line cancellation. Perfect, the detective said when I showed it. This is important. It proves that number should be inactive. If someone is using it now, it means it was reactivated or they're using some app to spoof it. Is that possible? I asked, surprised. To fake a phone number? Yes, ma'am. There are apps and services that let you send messages from any number. It's illegal to use them for fraud, but they exist. We need to find out who's doing it and why. He snapped a photo of the receipt and continued. Does your daughter have technical knowledge? Computers? Complex programs? No, detective. Emily teaches Spanish. She uses her phone for basics messages, Facebook, that's it. Nothing advanced. Then it's likely someone is helping her or someone else is behind it and using her. He paused, looking straight at me. I need to ask something delicate. Does your daughter have money problems? The question hurt, but it was fair. I don't know for sure. Not before, but in the last months I've noticed her different. Stressed, tired. About 2 months ago, she asked to borrow 50,000 pesos. She said it was to fix her car. And you lent it to her? Yes. She's my daughter, how could I say no? He jotted it down. Has she paid any of it back? I shook my head. She said she'd pay in installments, but so far, nothing. Do you know if your daughter has debts, banks, credit cards? No, detective. Emily never talks about that. She always says everything is fine with her and Michael. Walker closed his notebook, eyes seeming to see beyond what I'd said. I'll be honest with you. Cases with family involved are the most painful, but they're the ones that most need resolving because the damage is deep. I'll investigate and look for the truth, but you must be prepared for what we might discover. What do you mean? I mean it's possible your daughter is truly involved, that she isn't a victim, but the planner. And if that's the case, you'll have to make very hard decisions. I felt tears well up, but I held them back. I wouldn't cry, not yet. Detective, I just want the truth, whatever it costs. That's exactly what we'll do. Now I need a favor. Does your daughter visit often? Yes, every 2 or 3 days. The next time she comes, try to see her phone again. If you can take photos of those conversations, perfect. But only if it's safe. I don't want you at risk. I'll try. He stood, tucked his notebook away. I'll start by investigating the number, whether it was legally reactivated or is being spoofed. I'll also discreetly look into your daughter's finances and check if someone close to her could be involved. This will take a few days, maybe a week. I walked him to the door. Before leaving, he turned. One more thing. Don't tell anyone about this investigation, not your daughter, not your grandson, not even other relatives. Only your friend Helen and lawyer Harris should know. Understood, detective. When I closed the door, I stood in the entryway, feeling the weight of it all on my shoulders. My peaceful old age had become a nightmare of lies and betrayal. 2 days later, Wednesday afternoon, Emily came without warning, knocked, and when I opened, there she was with Michael, my grandson, that lanky 6-year-old, who always greeted me with a hug. "Hi, Grandma," Michael said with a smile so much like Richard's when he was young. "Hello, my love. What a surprise. Come in, come in." Emily came in behind him carrying a grocery bag. "I brought you a few things, Mom. Fruit, milk, bread." "You didn't have to, honey." "Of course I did. You're my mom." She kissed my cheek and took the bag to the kitchen. Michael stayed with me in the living room, telling me about school, about a math exam he passed, about a soccer match he had on the weekend. I listened and smiled, but my mind was elsewhere on that bag Emily left on the sofa, on her phone likely in her pocket. "Grandma, are you okay?" Michael asked, pulling me from my thoughts. "Yes, my love, just a little tired." Emily came back and sat with us. "Mom, have you thought about the papers? It's been 3 days." There it was, the pressure, the urgency. "Not yet, honey. I told you I want my lawyer to review them first." I saw her jaw tighten. "Mom, I don't understand why you're making things complicated. They're just paperwork. They're properties, not simple forms," I said. "I need to be sure what I'm signing." She sighed in frustration, got up, and went to the bathroom. Michael kept chatting, unaware of the tension. My heart quickened. Emily's bag sat on the sofa where she'd been. Her phone peeked from the edge. I glanced down the hall. Emily was in the bathroom. Michael was focused, showing me something on his phone. It was now or never. With trembling hands, I took Emily's phone from her bag while Michael kept full-line on, talking about his soccer match. "Uh-huh, that's great, my love," I said without really hearing, all my senses on the device and the sound of water in the bathroom. I swiped, and to my surprise, it opened without a lock. I quickly found WhatsApp, opened it, and there it was, the conversation titled "Dad" at the top. My heart pounded so loudly, I thought Michael would hear. I began snapping photos with my own phone, quickly trying to capture as many messages as I could. "Daughter, don't give up. Your mom is stubborn, but she'll listen. Photo, those lots are your future. It's time to claim them. Photo, has she signed? Tell me she signed. Photo." There were dozens of messages, all from the same number, all written as if Richard were alive, as if my dead husband were on the other side, advising our daughter how to take my properties. I scrolled higher, hands sweating, and found something that froze my blood, a reply from Emily. Almost, "Dad, she's going to sign. I just need to pressure her a little more. With the money from the lots, I'll be able to pay everything, and Jack will stop threatening me." Jack. Who on earth was Jack? I photographed that message too, and just as I was about to scroll further, I heard the water shut off. I closed WhatsApp, locked the phone, and put it back in Emily's bag exactly as it was. I slipped my own phone into my apron pocket as Emily came out. "What are you two talking about?" she asked, sitting down and grabbing her bag, oblivious. "Michael was telling me about his match," I said, and my voice sounded surprisingly normal, even though inside I was trembling. "He says he's going to score lots of goals." "I hope so," Michael laughed, continuing about his team while I tried to calm my breathing. Emily stayed another half hour, insisting about the papers again, asking when I'd talk to my lawyer, pressing me with that fake smile I could now clearly see for what it was, a mask. When I left, I waited for her car to turn the corner. Then I took out my phone, hands still shaking. There were the photos, the evidence, the words proving someone was using Richard's number to manipulate my daughter, or that my daughter was involved in something darker than I imagined. I dialed Detective Walker immediately. He answered on the second ring. "Miss Gracie, what happened?" "Detective, I got the photos. I took pictures of the messages on my daughter's phone." "Excellent work. Can you send them to me on WhatsApp right now? I need to see them." With clumsy fingers, I sent every photo I'd taken. I waited in silence, listening to his breathing while he reviewed the images. After a few minutes that felt eternal, he spoke again. "Miss Gracie, this is pure gold, clear evidence of manipulation. But there's something even more important, the name Jack. Your daughter says he's threatening her and she needs money to pay him. Do you know any Jack?" "No, Detective. I've never heard that name." "Then we have to find out who he is. He could be the key. I'll look into every Jack around your daughter, co-workers, acquaintances, anyone. And I'll trace the phone number pretending to be your husband." This is getting more complex than I thought, but we also have more leads now. "Detective, what do I do if Emily pressures me again about the papers?" "Keep delaying. Tell her your lawyer is reviewing them and needs more time. Don't sign anything under any circumstances. And, Miss Gracie, be careful. If someone is threatening your daughter for money, that person could be dangerous." When I hung up, I sat on the sofa and, for the first time since all this began, I cried. I cried for my daughter, for whatever had trapped her in this situation. I cried for Richard not here to help me understand what had gone wrong with our Emily. I cried for myself for having to face all this alone at 68, when all I wanted was to live out my years in peace. But after crying, I wiped my tears, stood, and made myself Linden tea to steady my nerves. I wouldn't fall apart. Richard hadn't raised me to be weak, and I wasn't going to start now. The next morning, Detective Walker called early. "Miss Gracie, I have information. May I come by in an hour?" "Yes, Detective. I'll be here." He arrived exactly an hour later with his folder and that serious face I was beginning to know. I sat him in the living room and poured coffee. He took several papers from his folder and laid them on the coffee table. "I found something important," he said bluntly. "Your husband's phone number was reactivated 3 months ago. Someone bought it again, registered it, and is using it. And guess whose name it's under?" My stomach tightened. "Whose?" "A man named Jack Newman Carter, 38. And here's the interesting part. He works at the same school as your daughter. He's the computer science teacher." I felt everything start to make sense. Pieces of a horrible puzzle falling into place. A computer teacher would have the knowledge to do this, to spoof messages, to manipulate tech. And what's his relationship with my daughter? The detective looked at me with eyes that had seen too many sad stories. "That's exactly what we need to find out, Miss Gracie. But from what I dug up, Jack Newman has a history. 2 years ago, he had legal trouble for credit card fraud. He was sued, but settled out of court. This man is a professional con artist." "So he's using my daughter," I said, wanting with all my heart to believe it. "He's threatening her, that's why she's doing this." "It's possible. Or it's possible they're working together. We won't know until we have more information. But at least now we know who we're dealing with." He pulled out a photo and showed it to me. A young man with dark hair, close-cropped beard, dark eyes, and a smile I didn't like one bit. "This is Jack Newman. Do you recognize him?" I studied it, trying to remember if I'd seen him before, then shook my head. "No, never." "All right, now comes the delicate part, Miss Gracie. We need to confront your daughter. We need her to tell us what's really going on and what her relationship with this man is." And there it was, the moment I'd dreaded since this began. Facing my own daughter and asking why she was betraying me. "No, Detective," I said firmly, surprising myself with my own tone. "If we confront Emily now, she'll deny everything or warn Jack, and the evidence will disappear. We need something more solid first." He looked at me with a mix of surprise and respect, as if he hadn't expected a 6-8-year-old woman to think that way. "What do you propose, Miss Gracie?" "I propose we set a trap," I answered, and as the words left my mouth, an idea began to take shape. "If Jack wants me to sign those papers to get my properties, let's make him believe I'm about to. We'll make him feel safe, make him think he's won, and when he comes out of hiding, we catch him." The detective leaned back, studying me with those investigator eyes. "Explain exactly what you have in mind." "I'll tell Emily my lawyer reviewed the papers and I'm ready to sign. I'll ask her to come tomorrow with a notary to make it official. If she's working with Jack, she'll tell him immediately. And if he's as greedy as I think, he'll want to be present to make sure it all goes smoothly. That's when you catch him red-handed." He drummed his fingers on his folder, thinking, "It's risky. We'd have to coordinate with lawyer Harris, so he's also present, along with a real notary who knows what's going on. And I'd need to record the conversation, have witnesses." "Will it work?" I asked, feeling adrenaline surge through my old veins. For the first time in days, I didn't feel like a provet. Victim, I felt like someone taking control. "It could work," he admitted. "But understand, if we do this and your daughter is truly involved, she'll be exposed. There may be legal consequences. Are you prepared for that?" The question hit like cold water. Was I prepared for my own daughter to face charges, to possibly go to jail? But then I thought of Richard, of all his work to keep me safe. I thought of those horrible messages using his name, his number, his memory, and I thought that if I did nothing, I'd end up on the street with nothing in my old age. "I'm prepared," I said. "The truth must come out whatever it costs." "Very well then, let's get to it. Call your daughter now, tell her you're ready to sign, and you want to do it tomorrow afternoon here at your house. Meanwhile, I'll coordinate with lawyer Harris and get the equipment to document everything." With slightly trembling hands, I dialed Emily. She answered on the third ring. "Mom, did something happen?" "Honey, I spoke with my lawyer. He reviewed the papers and says everything's in order. I'm ready to sign." There was silence on the other end, too long a silence. "Mom, really?" "Yes, honey, you're right. I was making this complicated. If it's just paperwork, like you say, then let's do it." "Oh, Mom, I'm so glad you understand. When do you want to go to the notary?" "Tomorrow afternoon at 4 here at my house. Bring the notary and the final papers. I want this over with." "Perfect, Mom. Tomorrow at 4. I love you." Her voice sounded relieved, almost happy, and that broke my heart, because it meant this was real, that my daughter truly was betraying me. "I love you too," I said, hanging up before my voice cracked. Detective Walker was already standing, packing his things. "Well done, Miss Gracie. I have to move fast. I'll be back tomorrow at 2 to set up. We'll place microphones, hidden cameras, and I'll be in another room listening. Lawyer Harris will be here as your legal counsel, and I've contacted a trustworthy notary who will come to ensure everything is legal. And if Jack doesn't show? What if only Emily comes? Then at least we'll have evidence that she tried to get you to sign, knowing you were being manipulated. But my instinct says Jack will want to be here. Con artists like him are controlling, they trust no one, not even accomplices. He'll want to see with his own eyes that you sign." I couldn't sleep that night. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, thinking of everything that could go wrong. I thought about Emily, the girl she'd been, the rebel but loving teenager, the woman who became Michael's mother. When had it all gone crooked? When had my daughter decided money was worth more than her own mother? At 6 a.m., I got up, bathed, and dressed as if it were any normal day. I had coffee with bread, watered the patio plants, cleaned the house. At 2 in the afternoon, just as promised, Detective Walker arrived with 2 men, one a sound tech, the other a cameraman. Without many words, they began installing equipment throughout my living room. Tiny microphones under the table, pin-size cameras among the knickknacks on my shelf, recorders in strategic spots. It felt like a movie, but this was my real life. At 3, Lawyer Harris arrived with a notary, a dignified older gentleman who greeted me politely. "Miss Grace, I'm here to support you." What I'm doing is either very brave or very foolish. I answered with a bitter smile. I still don't know which. By 3:30, everything was ready. Detective Walker and his 2 assistants tucked into my study with the door ajar to listen. Lawyer Harris and the real notary sat in the living room with me. My hands were sweating, my heart pounding like a drum, and I watched the wall clock count down the minutes. At 4:10, my phone chimed a message from Emily. "We're almost there, Mom. I'm coming with the notary." "Notary?" I asked the lawyer. "She says she's bringing a notary. Probably a fake part of the scam. That's why I brought a real one. Let's see." At exactly 4, I heard a car pull up in front of my house. Footsteps on the porch. The bell rang. I stood, smoothed my dress with trembling hands, and walked to the door. I took a deep breath once, twice, and opened it. There was Emily, a big smile on her face and a folder in her hands. And behind her, wearing a black suit and that same smile I'd seen in the photo, stood Jack Newman. "Mom, this is Licenciado Parker. He's the notary who'll certify the signatures," Emily said, pointing to Jack with a casualness that turned my stomach. So that was the plan, Jack pretending to be a notary to be present at the moment of the fraud. He extended his hand with that salesman's fake smile. "Pleasure to meet you, Mrs. Miller. Your daughter has told me a lot about you." I shook his hand briefly, my skin crawling at the touch. "Please, come in." I led them into the living room where Lawyer Harris and the real notary were already seated. I saw Emily's smile freeze when she saw them. Jack stopped short, the color draining from his face. "Mom, who are they?" Emily asked, tension in her voice. "This is Lawyer Harris, my attorney. And this is Notary Brown certified. If we're doing this, we're doing it right with all legal formalities." I emphasized certified, looking directly at Jack, and I saw his jaw clench. Harris stood. "Sir, are you a certified notary?" he asked Jack professionally. "Yes, of course," Jack stammered, unconvincing. "Then you'll have no problem showing us your professional license and official seal," Harris continued, relentless. Jack reached into his jacket as if searching for something, his movements clumsy, desperate. "I left it in the car. I'll go get it." "No, we can wait here," said Harris, with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "In fact, I insist you stay. We have a lot to discuss." The room grew heavy tense. Emily was pale, looking at Jack with pleading eyes. Jack looked like a cornered animal searching for an exit. And I stood there, feeling my heart shatter into 1,000 pieces because everything the detective had said was true. My daughter was betraying me. My own daughter. "Mom, there's a misunderstanding," Emily began, voice trembling. "We just came to rob me," I finished, my voice harder than I expected. "To make me sign fake papers with a fake notary to take the properties your father worked his whole life to leave us." "No, Mom, it's not like that." "I can explain." "Then explain this." I took out my phone and showed her the photos I'd taken of her WhatsApp. "Explain these messages from your dead father's number. Explain who this Jack is and why he's using Richard's phone to manipulate you, or for you to manipulate me. Explain everything, Emily, because I'm tired of lies." Tears began to stream down my daughter's cheeks. Jack, in contrast, took a step toward the door. "I'm leaving. This was a mistake." "Ma'am, I don't know what you're talking about." "I think you do," said a voice from the hallway. Detective Walker appeared with his 2 assistants, blocking the exit. Jack Newman Carter, 38, computer science teacher with a fraud record. Sound familiar? Jack froze. Emily sank onto the sofa, sobbing into her hands. And I, standing in the middle of my living room, felt my world collapse. "Emily," I said, my voice breaking, "look at me." She lifted her face, red eyes, mascara streaked. "I need you to tell me the truth. What's happening? Why did you do this?" "Mom, I have debts. Terrible debts. A year ago I met Jack at school and we started dating. He was kind, caring. He made me feel special. But then he started asking to borrow money. Small amounts at first, then more and more. I lent him everything I had. I even took out loans, maxed my credit cards, and when I couldn't give him more, he said he knew a way to get money fast. The properties, I said, nauseated. Yes. He said if we could transfer them into my name, we could sell them quickly and split the money. That you wouldn't be left with nothing because I would always take care of you. But Mom, I swear I didn't know he had reactivated Dad's number. I swear that when those messages started coming, I don't know what I thought, maybe a sign from heaven that Dad was helping me from above. I didn't know it was Jack sending them. So you're telling me you were foolish enough to believe your dead father was sending you WhatsApp messages? My voice came out harsher than I intended, but I couldn't control the pain, the anger. I was desperate, Mom. Jack threatened to tell Michael everything to ruin my reputation at school, to hurt you if I didn't get the money. That's a lie, Jack spat. She knew exactly what we were doing. She gave me the idea to use her father's number. She's as guilty as I am. Liar, Emily shouted, standing. You forced me. You manipulated me. Enough, said Detective Walker, authoritative. Both of you have a lot to explain, but not here. Mr. Newman, you're under arrest for attempted fraud, identity spoofing, and extortion. Miss Miller, you'll also need to come in to give a statement. 2 officers who'd been waiting outside entered and cuffed Jack. Emily looked at me with pleading eyes, hands outstretched. Mom, please forgive me. I never wanted to hurt you. Please, Mom, help me. And in that moment, with my daughter crying in front of me, the man who tried to rob me being arrested, my living room full of lawyers, police, and recording equipment, I felt something I never thought I'd feel toward my own child. I felt disappointment, betrayal, but above all, I felt that the girl I'd raised no longer existed. In her place stood a desperate woman willing to leave me penniless to save her own skin. Detective, I said, my voice surprisingly calm, do what you have to do. They led Jack out in handcuffs while he shouted that everything was a lie, that Emily had tricked him, that he was the victim. His words faded as the patrol car door shut. Emily sat trembling on my sofa while Lawyer Harris explained that she would have to give a statement to the public prosecutor, but that she wasn't under arrest for now. However, Miss Miller, your legal situation is very serious. You attempted to defraud your own mother. That has grave consequences, he said, while she only cried and nodded. I stood by the window, watching them take Jack away, feeling a vast emptiness in my chest. Detective Walker approached. Miss Gracie, I need you to come to the station tomorrow to make your formal statement. With the recordings we have and the photos of the messages, the case against Jack Newman is solid. He's facing several years. And my daughter? I asked without looking at her, unable to. That's up to you. If you press charges against her, she could face prison too. If you decide not to, there will still be consequences, but lesser ones. It's your decision. Then I turned and looked at Emily, the eyes I'd known since she was a baby. Eyes that had looked at me with love for 42 years. I need you to leave my house, I said calmly. Right now. Mom, please let me explain. I don't want any more explanations, Emily. No more lies. I need time to think, to decide what I'll do. But right now, I can't even look at you without feeling you betrayed me in the worst way. Emily stood, grabbed her bag with shaking hands, walked to the door, and turned one last time. Mom, I know I don't. I deserve your forgiveness, but you need to know something. Jack threatened to hurt you if I didn't do what he wanted. That's why I went through with it. And taking everything your father left me, was that not hurting me? I replied. Leaving me with nothing in my old age, was that not harming me? Emily, if you truly cared about my well-being, you would have come to me for help from the start. You would have trusted me. Instead, you chose to lie to me, manipulate me, and use your dead father's memory to rob me. That is unforgivable. She opened her mouth to say more, then closed it. She lowered her head and left. I heard her steps on the porch, the car starting, and then silence. A silence so deep it hurt. Lawyer Harris, the notary, and the detective with his team left after packing up the equipment, assuring me they would be in touch. What you did today was very brave, Miss Gracie, Harris said before leaving. Not many people would have the courage to confront a family member like that. I don't feel brave, licenciado. I feel destroyed. When I was finally alone, I sat on the sofa where it had all happened and let the tears come. I cried for everything I'd lost, not the properties. Those were safe. I cried for my daughter, for the relationship we'd had, and which was now broken, who knows if forever. I cried for Richard, wishing he were here to tell me what to do, how to fix this mess. I cried until I had no tears left. That night, I couldn't sleep. I sat in the kitchen with a cup of tea that went cold, untouched, thinking about everything. Sometime in the early morning, the doorbell rang. I was startled. It was 3 a.m. I looked out the window and saw Michael's truck outside. My grandson. I opened the door, and there he was, red-eyed, distraught. "Grandma, is it true? Mom just told me everything. Is it true she tried to steal your properties?" I let him in, and we sat in the living room. I told him everything without sugarcoating. Michael cried as he listened, shaking his head. "I can't believe it. My mom, how could she do that to you?" "Son, your mom made a terrible mistake. She let herself be manipulated by a bad man and made awful choices. But she's still your mother. You don't have to choose sides." "But I do, Grandma. I choose yours. What she did is wrong, very wrong." Michael stayed the night, sleeping in the room that had always been his when he visited, and his presence gave me a little comfort in the middle of this nightmare. The next day I went to the station as the detective had asked. I gave my formal statement, signed documents, watched the video recordings that had captured everything in my living room. Seeing my daughter on that screen, her face when she realized we'd caught them, felt like being stabbed in the heart all over again. "Miss Gracie, I need you to decide," the detective said when we finished. "Will you press charges? Against your daughter, or only against Jack Newman?" I looked at the photos on the desk, pictures of Emily, of Jack, of the fake messages. "Only against Jack," I answered at last. "My daughter will have to live with what she did, face the social and emotional consequences of betraying her mother, but I won't be the one to send her to prison. I've already lost enough." The detective nodded. "That's very generous, but you should know that even if you don't press charges, the public prosecutor might proceed anyway. There's evidence of attempted fraud." "That's out of my hands, then," I said, standing. "I've done what I could. The rest I leave to justice. Goodbye." I left the station feeling the weight of the world on my shoulders, but also something else I didn't expect. Relief. Relief that the truth had finally come out. Relief that my properties were safe. Relief that Jack wouldn't hurt anyone else. But the relief was mixed with a deep pain I knew would accompany me for a long time. 2 weeks passed without Emily calling or visiting. 2 weeks in which my house felt emptier than ever, though Michael came by almost every day after school. My grandson had moved in with me temporarily because, he told me, things at Emily's house were unbearable. She had lost her job when the scandal broke and now spent her days shut in, speaking to no one. "Grandma," Mom just cries. "Michael told me over dinner. She says she lost everything, her job, her reputation. You. I don't know how to help her." "I don't either, son. Sometimes people have to hit bottom before they can stand up again. Your mom has to face the consequences of what she did." But at night, when Michael was asleep, I cried for my daughter too. No matter her betrayal, she was still my girl, the baby I rocked when she cried, the child I nursed when she was sick, the one I'd watched grow and become a mother. Detective Walker called one Tuesday afternoon with news. "Miss Gracie, Jack Newman pled guilty to all charges. He'll face 5 years in prison for fraud, identity spoofing, and extortion. He also confessed to scamming 3 other people using similar methods. My daughter was lucky you didn't press charges," he added, "because he was blaming everything on her." "And what will happen to Emily?" I asked, unsure I wanted the answer. The public prosecutor decided not to pursue criminal charges against her due to evidence she was coerced by Newman. However, she'll have to pay a fine and do community service. There will also be a record that she was involved in an attempted fraud, which could affect her job search. I hung up feeling a strange mix of relief and sadness. My daughter wouldn't go to prison, but her life was ruined anyway, and I didn't know if I could ever fully forgive her. One afternoon, while watering my plants in the patio, I heard a knock. It was Helen, my comadre, carrying a basket of food. I came to see how you're doing, Gracie, and don't tell me you're fine, because I know that's not true. We sat in the kitchen, as we had 1,000 times, sipping coffee and eating the bread she'd brought. I told her everything that had happened since we last met. Helen listened in silence, nodding now and then. Comadre, I need to tell you something you might not want to hear, she said finally. But I think it's important. Emily did something terrible. Yes, but you also have to ask how she got there. When was the last time she truly asked you for help, and you were there for her? Her words hurt because they touched something I'd been avoiding. Are you saying this is my fault? No, Gracie. I'm saying families are complicated. Emily made horrible choices, but maybe she did because she was so desperate she saw no other way. And maybe, if you two had communicated better, she would have come to you before falling into that scoundrel's trap. I stayed quiet because deep down I knew Helen was right. Emily had asked me for money months earlier, 50,000 pesos, and I gave it without many questions. I didn't ask why she really needed it, or if she was okay, or if she had problems. I just assumed it was for the car and left it at that. Maybe if I'd been more attentive, more present, this could have been avoided. That night, after Helen left, I sat with Michael in the living room. Son, I need to ask you something. Does your mom have more debts besides what she took on with Jack? Michael looked down, uncomfortable. Yes, Grandma, a lot. Maxed out credit cards, bank loans, she even owes money to some teachers at school. I don't know exactly how much, but it must be a lot. And why didn't you tell me? Why didn't your mom come to me for help? Because she was ashamed, Grandma. She didn't want you to think she was a failure. And because Jack told her that stealing your properties was easier than admitting she'd ruined her finances. I got up and went to my bedroom. I took from the closet a box where I keep my important documents. Inside were statements for the rent I collect, bank papers, everything. I sat on the bed and began to do the math. The properties brought in enough for me to live comfortably. If I sold one of the 3, I could pay all of Emily's debts and still have 2 properties to support me for the rest of my life. The question was whether I wanted to do that after everything. I spent the whole night awake thinking about Richard and what he would have done. He always said family was most important, that mistakes are forgiven, that a parent's love has no conditions. But Richard had never had to face a betrayal like this. Early the next morning, I called Emily. She answered on the 3rd ring, her voice hoarse as if she'd been crying. Mom, Emily, I need you to come to my house. We have to talk. Mom, I don't know if... It's not a request, honey. It's an order. Come at 11. Alone, no Michael, no one. Just you and me. I hung up before she could answer. At 11 sharp, she knocked. When I opened, I was shocked by her appearance. She'd lost weight, dark circles under her eyes, her hair unkempt. She looked 10 years older than last time. I let her in, and we sat in the living room facing each other, a heavy silence between us. She spoke first. Mom, I know there are no words that can fix what I did. I know I failed you in the worst way, but you need to know I regret it every day. Every day, I wish I could turn back time and do things differently. I looked into her eyes so much like mine. Emily, how much do you owe in total? I want the truth, everything. She was quiet a moment, surprised by my question. Then she took out her phone, searched for something, and showed me a list, numbers upon numbers, credit cards, loans, promissory notes. 320,000 pesos, she said, voice breaking. I owe 320,000, and I have no way to pay because I lost my job, and no one will hire me with my record. 320,000 pesos, a fortune, but less than one of my properties was worth. I watched her in silence for a long moment, her face terrified, expecting me to throw her out, to yell, to say I never wanted to see her again. Instead, I said something I didn't expect to hear from myself. I'm going to sell one of the properties, I said firmly. Her eyes widened, incredulous. I'm going to pay all your debts, every peso. Emily began to cry, covering her mouth with her hands. Mom, no, I don't deserve. You're right, you don't, I cut in, my voice harder than I intended. After what you did, after betraying me, using your father's memory, you don't deserve anything from me. But I'm going to do it anyway. Do you know why? Because unlike you, I do know what it means to be a mother. Being a mother means protecting your children even when they don't protect you. It means making sacrifices even when they don't deserve them. It means loving even when that love breaks your heart. Tears were streaming down my face now, and I didn't try to stop them. But listen carefully, Emily, because I'll only say this once. I'll pay your debts so you can start over, so Michael doesn't have to carry the shame of seeing his mother destroyed. But after this, you will work to pay me back every peso. I don't care if you have to clean houses, sell food on the street, or do any honest job. You will pay me back little by little, down to the last cent. And in the meantime, you will go to therapy, you will learn to manage your money, and you will rebuild your life from zero. Understood? Emily nodded through sobs, unable to speak. I stood and went to my bedroom. I returned with the transfer papers she'd brought weeks earlier, the papers I had almost signed, unknowingly giving away everything. I ripped them to shreds in front of her, slowly letting each piece fall to the floor like confetti from a bitter celebration. These papers no longer exist. The properties are mine and will remain mine until the day I die. After that, if you prove you deserve them, maybe I'll leave them to you, but that's no longer guaranteed. You broke my trust, and now you have to earn it back. I sat again, took her hands in mine, and looked her straight in the eyes. Emily, I forgive you because I'm your mother, and because I know you were under the influence of a bad man who manipulated you. But forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. The scars from this betrayal will stay with me until I die. Our relationship will never be the same. That's something you'll have to accept and live with. I know, Mom. I know, and I accept it, she said, voice wrecked. Just give me a chance to prove I can change, that I can be better, please. We hugged then, a hug full of pain, regret, and a love cracked but still there, resisting. I felt her body tremble against mine as she cried. I cried too, for everything we'd lost, and for everything that maybe with time and effort we could recover. The weeks that followed were hard but full of change. I sold the smallest of my 3 properties, the one farthest from downtown. With that money, I paid all of Emily's debts, every card, every loan, every promissory note. I watched the relief on her face as she was freed from those financial chains that had been choking her for years. Emily got a job in a department store while looking for something better. It wasn't the teaching career she'd had, but it was honest and let her pay her bills. Every payday, without fail, she deposited 1,000 pesos into my account. It was little compared to what I'd paid, but the effort mattered. I saw her arrive tired from a full day's work and still stop by to visit, bring me fruit from the market, ask how I was. Michael stayed living with me. His school is closer to my house, and he confessed one night he felt safer here. Grandma, thank you for giving my mom another chance. I know it wasn't easy, son. Life never is, but it's our responsibility to decide what kind of people we want to be when things are hard. I chose to be a mother even when it hurt. Jack Newman was sentenced to 5 years in prison, and during the trial, all his other frauds came to light. He'd scammed several women using the same methods, preying on loneliness and desperation. Seeing his face in the newspaper handcuffed and beaten down gave me a sense of justice I needed. That man wouldn't hurt anyone else for a good long while. It's been 6 months since all this began. 6 months since the night Emily's phone lit up with Richard's number. Sometimes I still wake in the early hours, thinking about it all, how close I came to losing everything. But then I look out my bedroom window at the lights of Puebla shining in the night. And I remind myself, I'm stronger than I thought, that I survived Richard's death, that I survived my daughter's betrayal, and that I'll survive whatever comes next. My relationship with Emily isn't what it used to be. Maybe it never will be, but we're building something new, based on honesty and the understanding that family love isn't perfect, but it can be resilient. She comes for Sunday lunch with Michael, helps me with groceries, tells me about her new job, and little by little, I'm learning to trust her again. Some tell me I was too soft, that I should have let Emily face the full consequences of her actions alone. But I tell them true justice isn't always punishment. Sometimes justice is giving second chances, helping the fallen up, choosing love over resentment. That doesn't mean I forgot what happened or that forgiving was easy. It means I chose not to let my daughter's betrayal turn me into someone bitter and full of hate. Richard always said land and money were worth nothing if you had no family to share them with. Now I understand better than ever what he meant. Yes, I protected my assets. Yes, I sought justice. But I also chose to protect my family because at the end of the day, when the lights go out and you're alone with your thoughts, the only thing that matters is knowing you did the right thing, even when the right thing was the hardest. And now you who've listened to my story from beginning to end, tell me in the comments which city you're watching from. I want to know my story reached your heart, that maybe it helped you understand something about forgiveness, about family, about the strength we all carry inside, even when we think we have nothing left. Write to me. Tell me if you've ever faced a betrayal like this, if you've had to make decisions as hard as the ones I made. You're not alone in this. None of us are. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being here, and may God bless you wherever you are.